someone's a bully and it worked for them in a sense, and now it no longer works for them. And that really did make me think of addiction. And I want to talk specifically about porn addiction, because I think this is something a lot of people are experiencing, or sexual addiction. So maybe talk about that.
I'd love to. And I'm going to connect it up too to everything we talked about, because I see porn addiction as an intimacy disorder. So I see it as a disconnection with others, ultimately with God, but with others, right? And so what is porn really, right? It's the illusion of connection. So we are, if I am let's pick on 9-year-olds. If I'm a 9-year-old boy and I feel disconnected, right? Like whatever the family situation is, maybe, dad's always working and traveling and I never see him, and mom's very distracted or something like this. And maybe I'm awkward, maybe I'm, struggle socially, and, I don't have good friendships, and I live a lot of isolation, whatever. Well, and then pornography somehow is discovered, right? So let's say it's on the internet. Well, what is the pornography saying? Well, the pornography is saying, I see you, I know you, I can comfort you, and the illusion of I have your good in my mind, in my mind, right? And all those elements of secure attachment are given through pornography, all but an illusion of secure attachment. So if the person feels like, I'm never seen, well, the pornography always sees you, in a sense.
It meets you where you are. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, exactly. If you look at other kinds of sexual addictions, I find it helpful to compare it in broad sweeps to kind of make the point. What is the guy who's a peeping Tom? What's he doing? He wants to be let in. No one lets him in, and so that he can see into another, right? Because the other side of being seen is seeing, because the other person is receiving you seeing them.
Yes.
Right? And so if this person has a deficiency, is never allowed in to anybody's heart, so to speak, then the peeping Tom is actually trying to get in. Then the opposite. What is the voyeur? The trench coat guy.
Yes.
He wants to be seen.
Yes.
Right? Of course, these are extremely unhealthy ways to get these needs met.
Yes.
Right? And
but it is fascinating.
Yeah.
It is, especially I think it's very easy to sympathize with somebody who is struggling with an addiction or a disorder that you yourself have struggled with, do struggle with.
Right.
But if there's something you not at all struggle with, you can see it for what it is.
Right.
Right. As you said, the voyeur, it's oh my gosh, and it's easy to kind of make light of, I suppose, make fun of, but these are people in pain who are.
Absolutely. Those are more pathological, perhaps, behaviors, because they're just sort of more noticed. But it's just a way of expressing what all of us have as basic needs. And most people are not going to those kind of pathologies, but they're still doing it, or maybe even just on their computer screen.
Well, that's kind of what a peeping Tom is, in a sense, isn't it? Right? Let me in a sense. It's Yeah.
And if there's no, and especially you've got masturbation usually accompanies pornography. So there is actual pleasure being given. You talk about St. Thomas Aquinas saying pleasure is an important healing thing. Well, there's pleasures that are healthy and pleasures that are unhealthy, right? But it's still pleasure. To the brain, it's just pleasure. And this is one, actually, I usually describe this little cocktail that's very powerful, that comes together in the brain, that is remembered in the brain a certain way. And the cocktail includes some kind of pleasure, right? Illicit or illicit, some kind of pleasure, an answer to a problem, right? So if I'm a gambler, let's say, right? No, let's say I'm a loser. I feel like I'm a loser. Okay. I feel like my life's no good. I'm just a big loser in life. I go into a casino, right? And I just decide to play a game. All right, I play a slot machine. I win $10,000 suddenly. What has the brain just been told? A, it's pleasurable to win lots of money. B, you're a winner. So it answers the problem that's deepest in that person's heart. The deep lie the person holds is now countered through this activity. What about if I feel like a loner and I don't belong anywhere, if that's my problem? Well, what happens when I get asked to join a group to smoke pot together. Suddenly, we're all smoking pot together. I suddenly belong. So there could be the pleasure of the pot smoking, right, tied with the I now belong. That's a powerful cocktail, right? That now the brain remembers. So even though, say, let's go back to the casino guy, even though the guy continues his night, ends up being in the whole $3,000 by the end of the night, his brain is still going, I want that feeling again. I want that feeling again. Because it answers his problem. But he's not consciously thinking this, of course, right? It's happening, I guess you would say subconsciously, it's happening in that part of the brain. So, and it's locked together.
This is really fascinating. In my book, The Porn Myth, I used an analogy of gambling for those wives who might be believing that if they were, whatever, pretty enough, bustier enough, more adventurous, then he wouldn't need porn.
Right.
And the analogy I gave was, here's why that's false. Suppose you know somebody who's addicted to gambling, and you think, oh, he's addicted to gambling. I'll help him. I'll give him a bag of cash. Does he go, thanks, I don't need to gamble anymore? No, because what he was after wasn't the money, in a sense. It was something else. And when someone goes to porn, they're looking for something else or that thing in a different way. Right. What do you think of that?
I do. I love that. But I think that other thing is an emotional state, right? So handing somebody the money might create that emotional state, but it might not, given that context. I mean, I'd like to get a bag of money.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think in the gambling, there's probably a piece that's a thrill.
Yes.
There's a risk and a thrill that then gets answered that's different than just somebody handing you an envelope. So it's the same, like even the porn, there's probably also a component added to that cocktail, which is I'm getting away with something, and there's a little bit of an excitement and a thrill to that. So a lot of times, and that even can be fear.
Yeah. So
it could be the emotion of fear. And so, which is interesting because I find with a lot of guys when doing some processing of addiction, and I actually will help try to get them in a small way into that emotional state that they experienced when the addiction started. Just enough to feel it. And when I ask them where they feel it in their body, it's often in their chest and it's often fear. And so when it comes to something like pornography, it's fascinating. It's not real, like it's not in their groin. It's not sexual exactly. It's fear. So the masturbation, pornography, and the visuals are connected with fear in some cases. Yeah. And it's a high. And so they're trying to get at that. They want a return to the emotional state they had in that moment. And that is something that has to be kind of taken apart before a person can, I think, before a person can really recover.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.